you know, if he thought someone had done wrong, you know, he'd stop it. The curious thing, as far as I'm concerned, is that I had previously been asked by, trying to think of names again, Drow. And Drow came and saw me and said Noguchi wanted his portrait painted. And Drow said, can you do that? You know, you got the gear. And I said, well, I've got watercolours and that. And so he said, all right, well, I'll fix it. And I spent about 3 days, I suppose. Drow would take me to the NIP officer's quarters, and I'd bow and scrape to Noguchi, and I did his portrait. He was quite pleased, you know. He flashed it around and all that sort of thing.
Did you get any form of?
Yeah, he gave me two bars of soap, which I said, you know, my thanks.
Now, how long after you did this was Drow?
That was as I said earlier. It was curious because at that time Noguchi was he wasn't nice, you know, but he at least was a human being, and you could talk or speak or say something. And he asked me what I did and where I'd been and that sort of thing. He spoke fair English, and then he told me who he was a chemist, and later would have been about, I suppose, a couple of months after that, Drow came along again and said, Noguchi says he wants you to paint some objects he's been having made. So I went again to Noguchi, and he'd started to become an irritable type because he couldn't make his mind up what colour he wanted these things painted. And he'd got a crafts bug. He'd started getting the sick to make things. And I remember the group that I had to paint for exhibition for some show in Bangkok was, he'd had a pair of scales made. You know, it was chemist, you see. Pair of scales, all sorts of objects, you know, retort stands and things like that. And I had to paint all these colours so that they would be absolutely tip-top for the exhibition. And we had a time of that. He lost his temper. You know, I was going around and suggesting colours, and I remember suggesting originally that it should be grey. Oh, he really jumped over that, you know. Too dull, much bright, you know. And in the end, he grabbed the scabbard of his sword, you know, which was a diuretic sort of green, and said, "This colour, this, I like." So I went away, how the hell was I going to paint these things with? So I did at least get some help from the Japs to get some enamel out of Kamburi. Wasn't any colour, it wasn't right, of course, and I spent probably a day mixing up, trying to make this damn colour, you see. And I painted these goods. And luck would have it, Noguchi goes down to Bangkok and he wins. He won the prize. And that was the early Noguchi.
Yes.
When I was up in the new officer camp, he was an entirely changed individual. When I came in, I was searched, and again lost bits and pieces. And we were lined up, and Noguchi walked soberly down the ranks, looking at everyone as he went. And he saw me, and he at least sort of sort of did something like this, you know, I know, and walked on. And I was, after that, things that happened really surprised me, because he turned completely, changed as an individual, almost as though he'd been rebriefed as an individual. He used to sit outside at night, outside our huts, and listen into officers' conversations. He's a completely changed individual. And then, you know, all the horrors started with the episode of poor Drow, which is explained so much. He forbade the use and anyone having pencils, paper, anything of that nature. You were only allowed to sit with your legs in front on the edge of the bamboo slats. You weren't allowed to lie down when you had a yasmir, a rest. He imposed all sorts of restrictions.
Now, can we move forward to the day that you knew the war was over?
Oh,
how did you hear of that?
That was extraordinary, because you know, it was unbelievable. We'd had so many bog hole rumours endlessly, year in and year out. It was a joke in the end, you know. Whenever you went to the bog, which was many times, I might add, you'd come back with another rumour, you know, that someone had seen something. We did get Thai newspapers in, very old, via this boy that brought the provisions and things, and black marketeers were rife. You know, they weren't particularly good types, but let's face it, they were doing a job, as well as flogging things and over the fence. You know, they'd get over or go through the fence at night, take a terrible risk, and they'd bring back drugs or something like that, you know, plus rumours, plus the odd old paper. So we did get some sort of very old news. The radio sets were terribly, terribly well looked after. Any news circulating from them was always left a week old at least. And there was a well-established MI5 of officers who did a sort of rounds of camps, circulating news, but it was at least a week old. But the end just came. We were assembled and it spread like wildfire.
Well, who told you? I mean, who
British officer.
The Brits did that? Who was it? Do you remember?
Might have been Toosey.
Now, can we go forward 3 days to after the end of the war?
Well, I mean, the end was sufficient. I went out almost straight away because I wanted as much paper as I could get hold of.
Oh yes.
And I went out with a gang of about half a dozen blokes, and we went to the paper mill, and a little chap called Archie ran it. It was a German firm, and he ran it with his Filipino wife, very tiny little woman, and Archie took us round. He gave me loads of pads of bamboo paper he made, and we had quite a session with Archie, because I don't, you know, at that time I never drunk anyway. When I entered I was only 20 odd, so I wasn't much of a drinker, and I can remember I was absolutely blotto. I had a terrible scene. We slept out on the barrack square.
Yeah.
It was terrible.